It's a quiet, rainy morning as Thomas Munson and his assistant arrive to do the painstaking work of monitoring vegetation growth in the Burns Bog Ecological Conservancy area.
Since the bog was protected 10 years ago, there was an intention to monitor ecological restoration. And one way of doing that is monitoring vegetation recovery over time. It'll be a challenge to keep all the paperwork dry today. And so we set up 50 permanent vegetation monitoring plots. And the idea is to see how sphagnum moss, which is the key species in the bog, is responding to changing water levels. This is plot B17.
Munson visits each of the vegetation plots once a year,
so the next plot's back this way.
Methodically tracking the plant species growing in each plot and measuring the depth of the sphagnum moss.
There's about 13 species of sphagnum in the bog. We deal in my work with about 3, and they're the ones forming the hummocks and then some of the hollow wet areas, and then there's some particular to the ditches and the places that have been peat mined. It's like looking at a miniature world when you examine sphagnum down on your hands and knees on a plot, and it's really the unique reason for the bog. Is you can stand on the bog in certain parts and jump up and down and realize that we're on a giant floating island of sphagnum.
Marcus Merkins is a frequent visitor to the bog as part of his duties as a natural resource management specialist with Metro Vancouver Regional Parks.
Right now I'm surrounded by a very common bog species. These are found typically in all the bogs in the Lower Mainland. We have Labrador tea here in front of us, some bog blueberry over here, certainly the sphagnum mats that are underneath me, some reindeer lichen, crusty lichen that sits on top of the sphagnum mats, some bog laurel I see over there.
Sundew is one of the more interesting plants in the bog. It's beautiful and delicate, but it's also a meat eater. These carnivorous beauties begin to show their sticky faces in May. And they're not the only small wonders of the bog.
The diversity of dragonflies and damselflies in the bog is very high, and that's typical for a wetland like this bog here. This particular bog supports breeding sandhill cranes, one of only a couple of breeding areas in the Lower Mainland still. Songbirds are abundant in the bog, likely in the hundreds of bird species.
Dozens of beaver dams are evidence of a healthy population of these industrious creatures. They're rarely seen, but wildlife cameras have captured images of curious deer and healthy-looking coyotes. Because the bog is an unsafe place to be with many hidden hazards, the only people allowed in are those who are part of a small, essential task force that's tasked with restoring and protecting this very special ecosystem.
I just like coming here and listening and smelling and experiencing what we have here. A bog this size is unusual. It's 8 kilometers across and 4 across the other way. It's huge. And when you come into the bog, it's just different than anything else you can experience in the Lower Mainland. You just sort of relax and enjoy what you have around you.
The bog is a wonderful ecosystem. It's very unique. It has species unlike anywhere else. And I've been able to come in for 10 years and look at it. Most people drive by on the surrounding highways and don't even know it exists and don't know how unique it is in terms of its place in BC, its place on the West Coast, and its place in the world. So I've been very lucky.